are ready to go with item 1, please. Apologies for absent. Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Jonathan Bianco.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any additional declarations? None. Thank you. Item 3, to approve the minutes of the last meeting, the 8th of July, pages 1 to 12. Are they agreed? Thank you. And item 4, this is to confirm that there are items of business in both Part 1 and Part 2. For members of the public, the Part 1 items are those matters that are discussed in public. We will be breaking the link, though, when we get into the private discussions on items 2. The agenda items and the decisions are published, though. So we're now getting into the substantial agenda items. Agenda item 5, Hillingdon Digital Connectivity Strategy. Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Leader. I move the recommendation on page 13, which is to approve our strategy, which is contained within this document. I think just to emphasise that obviously as the world moves faster into the use of digital, Hillingdon needs to be ensuring that its residents, businesses and everyone who comes through the borough gets the opportunity of making the most of what is available. And this consultation and this strategy is about ensuring that the big players recognise that Hillingdon isn't just around the south of the borough and the airports and what have you. It is about the overall borough that needs to be supported as much as possible. And whilst Hillingdon itself does not have vast sums of capital to deploy in this respect, what we do have is the ability to have very open discussions with the private sector about the borough's needs, what we would expect, and to make life easy for the private sector in the way in which they wish to roll out the advancements in digital technology. And this document therefore puts all that in place, but it also creates the opportunity for us as a council to then pause and think about how do we really make the most of what the digital changes coming forward give to us as an authority, as an operation, and also to facilitate benefits for all of our residents in terms of their own personal learning and use, etc. And that's why I would recommend it, because I do think it is a comprehensive summary of what we need to be doing to ensure maximum use of the digital technology.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mills. I absolutely agree with you that this is an essential part of a successful borough. It's just, you cannot contemplate a borough being successful either in terms of its residents and its ability to access the digital world, or in terms of commerce and business and growth, without having excellent connectivity, digital connectivity. This helps us enormously. Therefore, is this recommendation report strategy agreed? Thank you very much. Agenda item 6, consideration of setting a licence deficit budget for 3 schools. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to propose agenda item 6, consideration of setting a licence deficit budget in 2021-2022 for 3 maintained schools in the borough. The recommendations are set out on page 38 to agree licence school deficits for Bishop Winnington Ingram, Holy Trinity C.V. Primary School and Oakwood School. There has been a positive movement from last year whereby there were 5 schools posting a deficit. This year there are only the 3. Maintained schools have an annual duty to provide a balanced budget to their school's governing body. A school may, in a particular year, under exceptional circumstances, end up in a position with a deficit budget. The school, with agreement of their governors, are required to notify to the local authority to agree and set a licence for a deficit budget for a specific period of time, usually for 1 financial year. The licence enables schools to function and reposition themselves for the future. I would like to thank officers this year within the school finance teams who have been actively working with schools, monitoring, supporting, reviewing and working on financial plans where necessary to ensure schools achieve a balanced budget. The full report is at pages 37 to 48 of the papers, and I therefore move.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Are the three recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, the monthly council budget monitoring report. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Leader. This is the report of the Council's results for the year to date as at the 30th of June 2021. If we look at the General Fund revenue account, we have an underspend of 361,000 against our budget. That's a very small improvement of £10,000 from the position as it was at month 2. If we look at our projected general balances at the end of the financial year, they're expected to stand at 26.5 million, which is consistent with the position we had at month 2. Obviously, the authority is continuing to incur exceptional pressures due to COVID-19, and our estimate for the full year of those pressures now stands at £16.6 million. So in total, we have incurred additional pressures in Hillingdon since the pandemic began, which are now in excess of £50 million. An increase in the on the month 2 position really comes about as a result of increased demand for mental health services and for looked after children's services. The good news is that those pressures within the financial year are covered by central government funding, which stands at 16.96 million at the present time. But I should mention that in addition, we have earmarked reserves standing at 10.1 million to cover any further overrun of costs which might occur. Turning to our programme of savings for 21-22, we're making good progress. Out of the £10.4 million worth of savings projected for the year, 2.8 million have been banked and have delivered already. A further 6.6 million is in the early stages of implementation, and we expect delivery. There is, however, a residual £1 million worth of savings which could be at risk. These derive from the planned improvement in income that we derive from our new leisure centre contract. These savings will be realised in due course, but of course they're delayed as a result of lower footfall through the leisure centres, which is a consequence of the pandemic. Once again, the good news is that delay in achieving those savings will be covered by central government funding. Looking at our capital programme on the General Fund, we have a spend of 297 million, which is planned to occur between the current financial year and 2025-26, and we expect that to be exceeded by about £1.1 million, and this is almost entirely due to a projected overspend on the Useley and West Drayton Leisure Centre, which amounts to £5.5 million, which is attributable to cost inflation in the construction sector, which has pretty materially and adversely affected the tenders which we have received. We are continuing to work to try and mitigate these cost increases, and we do expect further progress in this respect. Looking at the dedicated schools grant, we continue to suffer in this area from the unprecedented increase in demand for special educational needs provision, and we're suffering from the inflationary impact of outsourcing some of this provision out of borough. This has given rise to an increased adverse variance on the dedicated schools grant in month 3 of £3.7 million. So this in aggregate, this indicates that we will have an overall adverse variance of something of the order of £5.3 million for 21-22, and we will have a deficit on the fund of £38 million at the end of the year. However, I am pleased to report that extensive work has been carried out on this subject, and it is very clear that the solution is to create additional special educational need places within the borough with Department of Education funding. We have a meeting scheduled with the DfE for September in order to start a process of agreeing a safety valve agreement. This is an agreement which will ensure that we establish in-year equilibrium in terms of our dedicated schools grant funding and spending, and will facilitate a return of capital to the council for the deficit which we are currently funding from our own resources. Turning to the housing revenue account, this continues to report a very close adherence to budget with a forecast surplus of £31,000, giving us a £49,000 favourable variance against budget and a £21,000 improvement on the position as reported at month 2. The capital programme within the housing revenue account is currently on track with a budget of £232 million to be spent between the current year and 2025-26. However, I should mention that revisions are currently being worked on the capital budgets in order to increase and enhance our housing stock and to reflect schemes such as the Hayes Regeneration Project. So therefore, I move the recommendations for Part A of this report, items number 1 and 2, which are set out in page 50 of the report. Turning to section B of the report, we have a number of recommendations listed, A to E, which are, I would say, fairly self-explanatory. I would like to draw Cabinet's attention to the fact that what we do have is an amendment to recommendation 2D, which is an adjustment to the amount of contingency which will be released to core budgets. So this will be adjusted to 13.291 million. So all other recommendations stand. So I therefore move recommendations A to E as set out, but with the amendment to 2D. I so move. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goddard, for a very full explanation. Colleagues, are the recommendations 1 and 2, A to E, as amended, agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Agenda item 8, the school capital programme update. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to propose agenda item 8, the schools capital programme update. The recommendations are set out on page 81, 2 recommendations. This report updates on forecasting for primary, secondary and special educational needs places within the borough. Hillingdon has had a successful school expansion programme for many years, ensuring that we meet our statutory requirements for efficient use of school places for our resident children, as well as being flexible to changing demands. This year has shown a levelling off and indeed a 2% decrease in primary roles compared to 2 years ago. The bulge is now moving through the secondary sector for the coming years, with the data currently projecting a levelling between sectors in around 2032. Currently there are 2 secondary projects. Harlington is being rebuilt and expanded to create additional places, and in addition there is a proposed new free school in the north of the borough, which is subject to review by the DfE as part of their commissioning process. The site has been chosen by the Department for Education, as their data has suggested that this is where the need will be. It is, however, fair to say that officers within the council are analysing and scrutinising new data as it comes through to ensure if a further new school is required, it is in the right part of the borough. With the continued rise in special educational needs places, both Hedgewood and Moorcroft are going through expansion projects too. Further, this new academic year has seen an unexpected rise in reception admissions, and Hedgewood is currently increasing its capacity with 2 new modular classrooms to accommodate the rise for 34 3 to 4 5-year-olds new school starters. The school's condition work programme is self-explanatory, allowing for necessary repair or replacement work to be carried out in schools to avoid any potential impact on daily operations. There are currently 10 schools in differing stages of work in progress and pre-construction. The full report is at pages 81 to 89 of the Cabinet report, and I therefore move.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Brien. This report absolutely underlines our commitment as an administration to ensuring that our young people have the best start in life by providing them with the very best school placing. We've already heard how we will be raising the challenge around SEN placements, and it is good to see the progress continuing in this way. Colleagues, are these recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. That completes part 1. We're now going to move into part 2. If I could ask the link to be dropped, please. Thank you.